Hi, I'm Amy, thank you for tuning in. I'm a little bit late bringing you this video, which is the books I read in April and the ones I'm planning to read in May. I had a really good month reading in April. There were a lot of books I enjoyed. Though I didn't read anything that I didn't enjoy. I didn't DNF any books, and I managed to read 3 physical copies and 2 ebooks, which for me is a pretty good reading month. So one of the first books I read was The Outlaws, Scarlett and Browne by Jonathan Stroud. And I've read other books by Jonathan Stroud and absolutely loved them, but I think this one might be the favourite I've read so far. I liked the fact that it's a dystopian, it has a real Western feel, and it's set in an alternative future outlaw society version of Britain. And I love that idea. It was executed really well. But my favourite part was the 2 main characters, Scarlett and Albert, had a fantastic, really interesting relationship where they weren't particularly friends to begin with. It's not giving too much away to say that. And as the book goes on, they just develop this sort of relationship of mutual reliance and then friendship. And I really hope there's going to be more books because I can see a lot of potential for watching that grow and seeing how they might move through this world together. So that was my first read of the month, The Outlaws, Scarlett and Browne. Really enjoyed it. Next book I'd like to talk about was approved but is a book that is now out, and it's called The Nightsilver Promise by Annaliese Avery. And I don't read very much middle grade fantasy, and this book really took me by surprise. I knew I'd enjoy it, I'd heard brilliant things, but I ended up absolutely loving it. And I think a lot of that was to do with the world, which feels very richly realised and creative without being bogged down with details, because I do enjoy fantasy, but I sometimes find it hard to keep track of all of the new qualities of this alternate world. I find it hard to keep them straight in my mind. But this one, I just really enjoyed the fact that dragons were part of this world, but not a huge part. I liked the fact that the fantasy elements were there, but not overpowering. So, brilliant read. Again, like Jonathan Stroud's book, I really warmed to the characters in this, and that for me is usually make or break of books. If I enjoy the main characters and their relationships, then I can usually get on with the book. So that one, second read, excellent. The next book I'm going to talk about is Not My Problem by Ciara Smyth, a YA contemporary. And I would recommend this book for people who like a bit of comedy, romance, and great relationships between characters. Again, like the other reads, there seems to have been a bit of a theme to my reading this month. I haven't read any of Ciara Smyth's books before. I think this is her second book, but I will definitely be picking up her others because the voice is incredibly strong, which I think is important for YA. And as I mentioned, the humour, I don't often laugh out loud when I'm reading books, but this one got me a few times. And there is a sapphic relationship in this book that I really, really liked that went from sort of enemies, I'd say dislike, to lovers, which was a really interesting progression. And I liked the plot of a girl who can fix other people's problems and in exchange for favours, but she finds it hard to fix the problems in her own life, and some of those problems are quite challenging. It does deal with themes of alcoholism in a family member, and I thought that the book dealt really beautifully with a difficult subject. It dealt with it with compassion, with some humour, and I think that the book ultimately, it felt really happy and upbeat, even though it was dealing with difficult issues, and felt like I was uplifted at the end. So another fantastic read. The ebooks I read this month, so the reason my TBR got derailed a little bit, I ended up with a very, very early copy of Wicked Little Deeds by Kat Ellis, which will be called Burden Falls in the US, Wicked Little Deeds in the UK. And people who know me probably already know that Kat Ellis wrote Harrow Lake, which is one of my favourite books of last year and actually of all time. And I was really excited to get this book, so I put everything aside to read it, and it is fantastic. If you're a fan of books that are creepy, with some really big scares, unsettling moments, and that will make you question whether the supernatural is really there in the book or whether it's the character that you don't trust and it's actually just something really happening to her. So what I liked about Wicked Little Deeds, it is set in a town and a place called Burden Falls, where there's a lot of local dark mythology and legends, and there's a real feel of something sinister lurking beneath the surface, not unlike Harrow Lake. And there is a family feud which is central to the plot that I found really interesting, and I just really loved all the characters in it. I liked trying to work out whether something supernatural was happening. And it's one of those books that had some terrible things that happened to the main character, and the book dealt with them really well. And I felt real sympathy for her and just really invested in what happened. And I think in a horror book that is really important, that you care whether the characters live or die. So my final read of the month, which I've just finished, was The Boyband Murder Mystery by Ava Eldred. And it was another book that I was really looking forward to this year, and I loved it. It's really fun. It's about a boy band member is accused of murder, and some of his fans band together to try and prove that he didn't do it. And I think if you have ever been a fan of something, I'm not particularly a fan of boy bands now, and in the past I have been, but now when I think of being part of fandoms like Buffy and, you know, all the vampire things I love, like Into the Vampire and the Vampire Diaries, I know what it feels like to be a fan, and I think that people who know that feeling will really love this book and will understand why the characters go to such lengths to prove that this boy band member is innocent, or is he, ... So I really recommend that book. I think it comes out next month in June, and I would really recommend it as an excellent YA read. So onto my current reads. I'm accidentally reading 3 books, which happens to me quite a lot. Usually because I end up doing a blog tour, I read something because it's the mood I'm in, and also this time I've started reading something that I was really excited about. So one of my current reads is for a blog tour, which is Marion Lane and the Midnight Murders. And this is set in an alternate 1950s where there is a mysterious detective agency working beneath the City of London and has developed a reputation for helping with problems that the police might not be able to solve. And that premise just gripped me straight away. I've only just started reading the book, but I'm going to be on the blog tour in a couple of weeks, and I think it's going to be a really, really positive review. So this is an adult book. I'd say it's fantasy, but it's only a touch. It feels quite grounded in reality, and it's obviously got the historical angle as well. So another current read, this was on my April TBR. I did not manage to get to it because, as I said, my reading got a little bit derailed by books I didn't expect. This is Vampires in Moscow by Caedis Knight. It's a paranormal romance, urban fantasy. It starts in New York, and the character has just travelled to Moscow to solve a problem, to investigate for a sort of part of the dark web that deals in supernatural beings and supernatural news called the Blood Web. And I'm really enjoying this book. It's very sexy, funny, quite cheeky in the humour, and I think this is going to be a really good read. There are more books in the series which I will definitely be picking up. The reason I ended up accidentally reading 3 books is the fact that this book arrived today, which is Midnight in Everwood by May Kuzniar. Now, the same author writes the Ship of Shadows series, published by Puffin, and it is a fantastic pirate series about a group of female pirates, and it's touched with magic. They go on adventures, they eat cake, and it is just absolutely brilliant. But Midnight in Everwood is May Kuzniar's first adult book, and it's a nutcracker retelling. It's described as a literary fantasy, which isn't often a genre I would pick up, but I knew when I read the blurb that this was something that I would love, and I've just read the first couple of chapters and the writing is absolutely gorgeous. It is so lyrical, and it's got that real touch of magic with every word, and I like it when a book, you can tell that it has a lot of thought has gone into the descriptions and the way the world is evoked, and I'm really invested already in Marietta, the main character's journey. So I think that this is going to be a beloved book by the time I finish. So to my actual TBR for May. I've been quite ambitious again this month. One of them is a book that I didn't manage to read in April, and a few are new titles. I put a photograph of them on Instagram, so you may have already seen. The first book is one that I've had for a little while, Fangs, and it's by Sarah Andersen, who is a comic artist and illustrator. And I don't know a lot about this apart from the fact that it is a love story between a vampire and a werewolf, which immediately grabbed my attention. I've seen little snippets of the artwork. I'll show you a little bit, just an example. This is the first page. I love the drawing style. I don't know whether it's a story with a narrative or whether it's more little mini snippets from this love story, but I love the idea. I think that the whole thing is gorgeous, so I'm quite excited to read something a little bit different. I've heard amazing things about this book and intentionally tried not to read too much about it because I love going into a YA horror not knowing too much and having the twists and the darkness spoiled. So this is House of Hollow. It's written by Krystal Sutherland. I managed to get a signed copy from Forbidden Planet, which is really nice. And I'm going to read the blurb because I don't want to give too much away, and this is all I know about it. So dark, dangerous things happen around the Hollow Sisters. Ever since they disappeared as children, only to reappear a month later with no memory of what happened to them, odd eerie occurrences follow in their wake. When Gray, the eldest, goes missing again, Iris and Vivi are left to figure out the mystery, but they aren't the only ones looking for her. As they brush against the supernatural, Iris realises that the world that returned them 10 years ago might be calling them back, but just how much horror lies beneath the surface. I love that creeps me out and gives enough away that it's a story about sisters and family and something dark that's happened to them, but it's left me really curious about what this horror is, where they were in the time that they were away. So I'm really looking forward to this book, House of Hollow. The next book, Emmy Levels Up, is a middle grade book. It may be for slightly younger readers too, I believe. It's by Helen Harvey, and it was on my April TBR, but I didn't manage to get to it because I had quite a few books that were due to come out, and I like to prioritise those. So Emmy Levels Up is a story of Emmy, who is a fantastic gamer, but she's struggling with bullies at school. And I think the idea of the book is that Emmy realises how she can use the strengths that she has in the gaming world to help her in her real life, and is meant to be a book about friendship and standing up for yourself. And I think this will be a really nice change of pace for me. So the next book I'm really excited about comes out in July 2021, and it's called Hexed by Julia Tuffs. And I'll read you what it says in the back because this says it all. It is described as Sabrina the Teenage Witch meets sex education in this feisty, funny new YA series from debut author Julia Tuffs. And what I read online about this book is that it is a feminist story about a girl who gets her powers as a witch and basically decides to use them to bring down the patriarchy. It sounds like it is really funny and about a girl who stands up for herself and what she believes in. And I'm really excited about this book. I think it'll be interesting to read a book with a contemporary feel, but also magic. I'm hoping it might have that feel of The Craft, but maybe something a little bit lighter and more humorous. The last book on my TBR pile is one that I didn't expect to receive, and that is The Outrage by William Hussey. So thank you very much, Usborne, for the surprise book post. The Outrage is William Hussey's next book after Hideous Beauty, which is a book I really enjoyed last year. And I would strongly recommend, if you want to read something that is about a beautiful relationship, it's about grief and moving on at the same time as remembering somebody you have lost. This book sounds a little different. It's a dystopian, and it is set in a world where, I'm going to read the back because I don't know all the details. So Gabriel is gay, and in the society where he lives that is a crime. And it says Gabriel's secret must be kept, not only to protect himself but to protect his boyfriend Eric, because Eric's father is the chief inspector at Degenerate Investigations, the man who poses the biggest threat to both their lives. I like the idea of a dystopian that explores issues that can impact on current society, but in a world that is completely different from ours. So I've got a really, really varied TBR pile this month. I'm excited about it. So that is it. I read some fantastic books in April, including Wicked Little Deeds, which I think will probably be one of my books of the year, and some really exciting books lined up for May. So I think it's going to be a really good couple of months for reading. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you might check out some of my past videos. I've just uploaded a video with Ellis where I've interviewed her about Wicked Little Deeds, and I've got some other interviews lined up with some of my favourite authors. I think my next video will probably be an author interview, and then probably the video after that I'm going to be talking about some manga books that I'm really excited about and I've bought recently. So thank you for watching. I hope you will like and subscribe and chat to me on social media about some of the books that I've read. Thank you.